amongst students. Is there a motion on the clerk general?
So moved.
Second.
And yes.
And I'm good with the requisitions.
Me too.
And yes.
And I do have 4 items for consideration, not on the consent agenda. The first resolution is approving and authorizing the president of the board to execute a contract for sale and a purchase of real property with the city of Lebanon, a donation letter, quitclaim deed, and temporary easement required by said agreement relating to property along Broadway Street, and further authorizing the county administrator to execute any other documents related thereto on behalf of the board upon approval by the county prosecutor.
So what are we doing, Martin, there?
Yeah, so the City of Lebanon is working to enhance the North Broadway area, specifically kind of in front of the fairgrounds. So Bruce and I, and mainly Bruce, has been working with a group to, I think it's less than, it's like 0.04 acres to quitclaim deed over to the city for sidewalk enhancements, some additional drainage issues. The specifics are that they will work to avoid anything that disrupts the fair a week prior to. Doesn't mean they won't do any potential construction, but that there's no obstruction to the fair while they're setting up or during the fair. But it really is they're looking to continue to enhance that North Broadway corridor. Anything that they happen to mess up from a fence or whatever, they have to bring back to current standards. So just trying to, I think, beautify their northern corridor coming into the city. Bruce, is there anything I missed there?
No.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
And yes.
And the second resolution is establishing a policy within the Warren County Water and Sewer Department relative to waiving sanitary sewer connection, water tap, non-participant, capacity, and inspection fees normally collected and retained by the county and not distributed as reimbursement to other utility service providers or funds to be deposited into assessment or rotary accounts for public charities that build specialty adapted houses in Warren County for severely wounded veterans of all military branches and first responders mortgage fee.
So moved.
Second.
And yes.
The third resolution is entering into a memorandum of understanding with the Warren County Common Pleas Court on behalf of Warren County Transit Service.
So this is, so 3 and 4 are sort of connected, so 4 doesn't occur if you don't agree with 3. Suzanne Mason from the Transit Department was reached out to by the Common Pleas Court. They have a grant, I think the grant covers many areas, but one of the areas that the court asked if transit could do, and by default it would be Valley Transport who provides those services for us, is I think they're struggling to get some folks who are in the court system, whether it be their court cases or supervision hearings and other types of items that live outside of the county, mainly Montgomery, Butler, and Hamilton, getting them to the county for those I'll just call them meetings. And so they want to do a pilot program, use these grant dollars to have our transit system go to spots just outside the county. So for example, in Montgomery County, it would be the South Hub at the Dayton Mall. I think for Butler County, it's right outside where the town mall area is there in Middletown. And to kind of create a loop system that would bring those folks to the courts and to their meetings. So if the board is acceptable of doing this, this would be an MOU between the transit department and the courts, and then the second would be number 4 there is approving the change order, and it's a $10,000 fee that the grant would pay to the transit department, then i.e. to Valley Transport.
Seems reasonable to me.
Okay.
So on the first, you have 2 resolutions?
I do. So the first one was entering into a memorandum of understanding with Warren County Common Pleas Court on behalf of Warren County Transit Service.
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
And the second resolution is approving change order number 2 to the contract with Valley Transport LLC for the operation of Warren County Transit Service.
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
And that's all I have.
Very good. Next, we have a work session with the Warren County Airport. For the students, we have an airport located here in the county, if you know, right on Green Tree Road. It is owned by the county, and there is a separate board that actually runs this facility. So on occasion, they come and discuss things and how things are going at the airport with us. So Al, good morning.
Good morning.
Your name was on the agenda, Al, so, but, you know, we'll call up the board president.
Will
you know.
you yield the floor?
I will yield the floor to Doug.
For the record, this is Doug Koenig, president currently for the next 2 months at the board. We've been somewhat remiss in being here for the state of the airport, but with COVID and the active master plan activities, it didn't make sense to not bring anything that was substantive. So we're here now as a result of that. Besides Al Wilson here, have Nick Brown, who is the lead engineer who led the master plan effort. We also have our partners from Warren County Limited, Josh Curtis and Bill No. They're here, and they're in part what makes that airport a success. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge over the 20-some years that Bruce McGarry has been with us, and a lot of what we've been able to accomplish would not have been possible if it wasn't for Bruce's legal advice, mentorship, etc. And so I think I would be, thank you, Bruce. What I was going to do is, what I usually do is talk about state of the airport, but I thought it would be better since we have Josh Curtis here, who has the numbers that I want you to understand. This isn't a hobbyist facility. This is a commerce center for the county. And so I've asked him to bring you some of the numbers and some of the activities. So I'm going to yield to him at the moment.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name's Joshua Curtis, Airport Director at the county airport. So I'm going to just go over a quick overview of the Warren County Airport. Currently, we have over 130 aircraft based at the airport, including seven turbines and 2 jets. Hangar capacity, we're currently at maximum capacity with a wait list of over 26. Despite recently building a new row of T hangars, which holds 8 aircraft apiece, and starting construction on a new corporate hangar soon, demand continues to outstrip availability. Businesses on the airfield, we actually have over 30 businesses that operate out of the airport, including CareFlight and Volantra. Volantra is an aerospace and defense company specializing in hypersonic propulsion technology, working with the Department of Defense. Flight schools, we support 2 flight schools offering helicopter and aircraft training. Flying clubs, we're home to the Flying Neutrons, one of the largest flying clubs in the area, and they have a wait list of over 50. So critical need for expansion. So this year we had some record-setting operations. We've seen record numbers, including operations from, you might be familiar with NetJets, Wheels Up, FlexJet, different other corporate aircraft, picking up both residents and local executives in the area. Warren County Airport is crucial for local businesses and regional events, including the Warren County Sports Park and Cincinnati Open. As the closest and most convenient airport to the Cincinnati Open, we are uniquely positioned to handle the increased corporate traffic that the event attracts. However, our limited runway length and ramp space restrict our ability to fully capitalize on this opportunity. The economic impact, extending the runway by just 500 feet and expanding ramp space would enable us to better serve corporate aircraft, keeping business traffic and spending local. Currently, many of the flights are diverted to either Lunken or Butler County airports due to their larger runways, which allow them to accommodate larger jets. So really in need there. And currently we have all the services that these corporate aircraft need. And after talking with a lot of the pilots, the 5,000 feet runway is crucial because one, it's insurance requirements for the jets to come in, Part 135 requirements. So that's why they don't come in there, even though we can handle. We get what's called Part 91 operations. I won't get too far in that, but basically it's required that they have at least over 5,000 feet for them to come in. community outreach and highlights, recently we just had a Airport Fest that drew over 1,000 attendees for our inaugural event, which received overwhelming support. Many attendees shared that they were not even aware that the airport was even there. So underscoring the need for continued community outreach and engagement. Disaster Relief Hub, our county airports are critical for disaster airport relief, especially down in North Carolina. It's the only means to get aid into the airport. We served as a staging area for hurricane relief with over 10 aircraft transporting critical aid to North Carolina. We still currently have aid that we're continually to deliver there. This effort was highlighted on WCPO 9 News, showcasing the airport's impact and importance to the community of times in need. So that's just a brief overview of the airport and its operations, and if you have any questions, I can take any questions for you.
It's helpful, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
I apologize, Jonathan's here, not only as a trustee, but he, like a lot of us, are neighbors to the airport, so this is really a blessing. Thank you, appreciate you coming. So in the 90s, John Lane, who was the founder of that airport, invited me as a pilot to come to the meeting, and then a few years later, I became a board member. And my understanding of the function of that board is that we are to be a liaison between you, Ohio Department of Transportation, and the FAA. But what I found out over the course of the years of being on that board was that we really need to protect that airport from squeezing that airport out. And I thank the county commissioners back, and I don't even know, maybe Bruce can help me, the year that we bought the Meyer property, which was 87 acres to the east, which is start of that buffer that we had. And since then, we've taken down trees, we've taken down towers, we've removed, as the FAA requirements for safety have expanded, we've had to take down even homes in that case. But along this way, I came to realize as we were growing, because this is nothing like the airport it was 25 years ago, we have needs, we have customers, we have visitors, we have businesses who have suppliers, vendors that come. And Martin, I appreciate that you shared that the architects came from Indianapolis and flew in to our airport. That's just a sample. We've had people fly in for Miami Valley Gaming. We've had people coming in with their lacrosse and soccer kids. It was just unbelievable that they did that. So I could see that we really need to look further down the road from this. And the previous engineering firm that we had as a consultant, his name was Jeff Kramer. He and I were discussing, well, what do we do about this 4,000-foot runway, and how do we get it? And his answer was very curt. Doug, you're about 25 years behind. And I thought that really was probably true, but it wasn't going to stop me from thinking about what we need to do to make this an airport. I don't know whether Josh mentioned it, but we're probably either the 7th or the 5th largest in terms of aircraft based in Ohio. The only one ahead of it that I know is clearly ahead of us is Lunken. This is a serious facility. Josh and his team, the Hendersons, the Warren County Limited, have been an integral part of that success. What we started 2 years ago was to start what is a typically every 10 to 15-year project called the master plan, what I used to call a strategic plan looking out in the future. We chose a series of vendors consultants to interview, and we landed on CMT. Nick, who I will bring up here very shortly, is a unique individual in the sense that he is an engineer, he's a resident of the county, he's a member of the Flying Neutrons, he's a pilot, but like a lot of us on the board, we're all pilots. Some of us are aircraft owners, some of us are tenants, and some of us are even neighbors that have a vested interest. So rather than me do this, I would rather go to the author that led this whole project and let Nick explain to you what this is. And again, this was over a 2-year project, and this is just a very Reader's Digest summary form of it for you. Nick?
Good morning, good morning. Doug did steal a little bit of my thunder, but as Doug mentioned, I did grow up in the area. John Lane taught me to fly at the airport. when I was a kid. So I've got a little bit of a vested interest in the future of the facility, and do want to see it grow and understand really what the value that it does bring to the county and to the residents of Warren County. So let me just go through here. Want to walk you through a little bit about the master plan and the process that we've gone through over the last year and a half to 2 years, as Doug mentioned. We were selected in 2021 to perform the master plan update that usually is every 10 to 15 years, depending on what has happened at the airport, where the airport is in its growth cycle, and what its needs are. If you finished a lot of the projects that were identified in the previous master plan, sometimes you update those a little quicker. So what is a master plan? That master plan really updates and sets out the vision for the airport at like a 30,000 foot view. We're not going to get down into the weeds and design anything, but we're going to understand generally where those footprints are, how big they are, where they're going to go, where certain facilities are going to go. Primarily, the runways, the taxiways, and the hangars and apron, the big things that you have to really work around that have a lot of the aviation requirements. So it's going to prioritize those needs. It's going to document them for the FAA, so that way the FAA can understand what the airports and the county's priorities are, but also understand when funding and things when those requests may happen moving in the future. Why was it needed? Again, the last master plan was completed. It was technically a mini master plan, so it was not a full update, but that was done in 2005, so a significant amount of time has passed. In that amount of time, a lot of the design criteria that the FAA has put out has changed significantly, so we needed to bring things up to modern standards. Again, what does it look like? We looked at the airfield, the runways, the taxiways, the land side, so the roads coming in and out of the airport, the parking lots, support facilities, the fuel farm, the hangars, all the things that support the aviation needs and the aviation activity at the airport. We looked at the operational factors, so the demand projections, what's happening at the airport today, what's going to happen in the future, what does that drive in terms of needs, and then how do we meet those needs moving forward. And the thing that's really important to remember, it's not a design study. We're not designing anything. Nothing is set in stone. There will be ample opportunities for things to be nuanced and changed in the future as we move forward into implementation and so on. And forgive me, if you have any questions, please stop me. I'm totally good with questions as we go through. So, a little bit, and again, Doug stole a little of my thunder on that first bullet point. Warren County, in terms of the number of aircraft that call Warren County Airport home, Warren County Airport is, as the FAA recognizes it, the 7th busiest in the state of Ohio. A couple examples of airports ahead of Warren County: Lunken, Cuyahoga County up in Cleveland, and I believe Bolton Field up in Columbus, or Ohio State. I'm sorry, the Ohio State are 3, and those are very busy general aviation airports. So to be up in that top 10 is a big deal of Ohio when there's over 100 airports in the state of Ohio.
Does this include commercial field, Port Columbus and things like that?
Yes, it does. But interestingly, commercial airports like that have very, very few
Oh,
based
it's not,
aircraft.
because they're not housed there.
They don't call it home.
From an operations standpoint,
Operations
obviously.
standpoint, they're very busy, but
Right.
from a based aircraft standpoint, there's very few aircraft that are actually based at those airports. I mean, there's 6 at CVG,
Okay.
as an example. So, very busy airport, but the airplanes don't technically live there. And I mentioned, Josh mentioned the 130 aircraft at the airport. Technically, if the FAA recognized all 130 airports that really truly do live there, you'd probably be in the top 4 of the state. And the reason they don't is because those aircraft spend a portion of the year elsewhere. Other airports claim them. So when there's that differential in 2 airports claiming them, the FAA only recognizes 1 of the 2. So there's a handful of them that aren't truly recognized by the FAA. But if they were, you'd be in the top 4 easily in the state of Ohio. So just to lay in the groundwork of how busy this airport truly is and how much activity is actually happening. Total operations at the airport were, over the next 20 years, we're projecting those operations to grow by 45%. And that's based off of all the forecasts and everything that we did as part of this master plan. And those based aircraft growing from 100 recognized to 145 recognized. So in reality, you're at 130 today. I mean, you could be at 160, 170 aircraft in 20 years. And really, the limiting factor is the places to store the aircraft, the places for the aircraft to be inside. Aircraft are expensive investments for people. Insurance companies really like them to be inside and out of the weather for a lot of reasons. So there is a shortage nationally and regionally for aircraft hangars. So the more hangars that are built typically will increase your aircraft, as evidenced by the wait list that they currently have as well. When we look at all those things, the outcomes of the master plan, and you'll see some imagery here or some drawings of what that looks like. But the general outcomes of the master plan, number one, we really need additional apron space. This airport has it really does lack in apron space to accommodate not aircraft that are spending the night here, but aircraft that are just coming in for a few hours, dropping people off and leaving, or staying one night and need a place to park overnight. There really isn't that large apron space to accommodate those aircraft today. So that's one of the initial needs right out of the gate, is additional apron space for those itinerant aircraft. The next would be, as I mentioned, hangar development. Nationally, regionally, there is a shortage of hangar space for aircraft, particularly the larger hangar space that the larger business jets and corporate flight departments really like to see and utilize, that might have one or two aircraft in them, but of the larger variety, not the T hangars that we see for the more of the smaller private single engine piston type aircraft. A wider and longer, a wider full length parallel taxiway, so that when I say wider, it's not necessarily the taxiway itself that's wider, but it's spaced further away from the runway, and more at the modern standards for the larger aircraft. And for that taxiway to go the full length of the runway, so that there's not the need for aircraft to back taxi at the end of the runway, taking up time on the runway, and also just occupying the runway that another aircraft could be coming in on. And lastly, a runway that's 100 feet wide and a minimum of 5,000 feet long. So our plan that we came up with, we were able to get to 5,006 feet. Seems like a trivial number, but every foot counts, so we'll take every foot we can get. Of runway length, and that again, as Doug and Josh mentioned, that gets us over that threshold of 5,000 feet, and for a lot of operators, that is a pretty critical threshold to allow the larger the business jets to operate in here more unencumbered. Any questions? Okay. So how do we? What's the vision on how do we provide those things? So we went through a whole process, and in that process we looked at 70-some different options of how to provide a runway length of at least 5,000 feet. And I know Doug and Al were overwhelmed that day, I think, a little bit when we came to the room and hung 70 pictures on the wall. But we looked at everything from rotating the runway, shifting the runway, going one north or south, or a little bit of both, and looked at a lot of things. Ultimately, we settled on an extension to the south for a variety of reasons. And that extension to the south, and it's not just the actual pavement that we have to provide for, but we have to provide for the safety areas around the runway to allow aircraft to operate safely, protect the airspace around the airfield, but also protect in the event that an aircraft deviates from the runway, either lands long and overruns the end, or lands just a little short, and provide as safe as area as possible for that. And that involves relocating or rerouting Green Tree Road. We met with the county engineer, and in concept, they're on board. They felt like they were on board or supportive of this. I mean, I think as this goes into design and implementation down the road, there may be some nuance changes that could happen and everything. But it involves the provision of two different roundabouts, both on the east and west side of the airfield. The nice thing is that western roundabout gives you an opportunity for another entrance into the brand new sports park that's over there off of Green Tree Road, as well as provides a nice entry for the airport via that roundabout. And on the neighbor aspect, also has a little bit of a traffic calming aspect on Green Tree Road, because I know there's a lot of concern on some of the speeds that are happening there today. So, but that allows us and gives us the room to extend the runway to 5,006 feet to the south. There's also a parallel runway on the west that's now that's being provided at the 240 feet separation from the runway versus the 150 that you have today.
So from an engineering standpoint, and just from, I don't want to say common sense, but most people would say, why are we diverting a solid road, making roundabouts, and I'll call it to the right, versus extending the runway to the left?
We can the primary reason is we can do so by impacting fewer homes and residents. That was the driving factor for going south. Less impact to the surrounding community.
What kind of impact are you talking about? The airport's right there.
the airport's having to purchase less property.
So, wait a second. Is it impact of property owners or is it cost to the airport?
Impact to property owners.
Okay, so the impact of the property owners is that you have a runway closer to your property?
No, we're, by going to the south, we're impacting fewer property owners by extending the runway. Because remember, if we extend to the north, the FAA is going to require us to come up to modern standards and regulations, meaning once we try to go to move that runway, either runway in, they're going to the FAA is going to require the airport to provide fully compliant runway protection zones. And runway protection zones are those trapezoids off of the end of the runway, if you see. So not only is it the 500 feet of runway, but then you've got another 1,000 to 1,400 feet, depending on the capability of the runway at the time.
You have to do this going to the south too, though.
But we have it clear on the north. But if you go north, we also have to then shift the whole runway to the north, unless you're gonna relocate Green Tree
Yeah,
Road.
I don't completely understand that. So you're saying since there is infrastructure to the south, there's turnarounds and things like that, you're exempt from certain FAA rules because we're putting the 500 feet to the south where there's stuff there?
Not necessarily, no. So this trapezoid exists on this end as well. It is already clear today. It's compliant. You have an easement over part of it and you own the property. So you control the property under that trapezoid to the north today. By going to the south, you're not touching, so this is compliant. If you did not extend to the south and you extended the runway to the north, you have to bring the south one into compliance as well. Because we're changing the geometry of the airfield, therefore the FAA is going to require.
How are we changing the geometry if we're adding 500 feet to either end?
You're changing the runway endpoints, that's changing the geometry.
But aren't we doing that to the south?
You are, but you don't have to, you're already compliant.
Compliant. So
This
you
is already
basically
compliant.
have to do
There's
both
nothing to do.
ends as opposed to
What does
just
that
one.
mean? It's compliant to the north, but it's not compliant to the south?
You have control of the property under that trapezoid.
Well, okay, so we already own the property.
Mhm.
Well, why going, so it seems to me that there's a lot less.
May I interject? Tom?
Yeah, sure.
The initial analysis
Come to the
was
microphone,
done.
please.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Nick.
No, please.
I
know,
just
I-
want to fully understand this
Yeah.
before we're talking about moving a road.
And I'm sure that there's a really good reason for this.
Yeah, I mean, we had death last year on that road, and we have accidents.
That's not the reason.
Yeah,
for
it's
this.
not, yeah, we're not
That's
going
not-
to
but I'm
change the
just saying.
road for the airport. It's,
That if you go to the north, we were told by Stantec that there are 15.
Who's that?
It's another engineering consultant that we have on board.
Okay.
Their comment to us was not only were there 15 landowners, there were houses that would have to go down to the north.
What do you mean?
I
They
thought we
would have
said,
to
I
be-
thought we control that.
Only the first 7 acres that we did with easement in 2005.
6 or 7.
7. It's easement. It isn't, we don't own that property. We control the
But
one
those
inch
are large
above it.
farms for the most part, right?
Jonathan's house is in that 15 list, and there's about 3 or 4 others that are in that path of that trapezoid.
So those houses would have to be taken?
Yes.
I'd like to see the overview of that.
Let me try to explain a little bit. If we were to ignore this extension here, and if we were to extend the runway to the north, we have to, this trapezoid slides with it. But the problem is today that trapezoid is currently, for lack of a better word, grandfathered with Green Tree Road, which is considered an incompatible land use within a runway protection zone. So if we're changing the geometry of the runway, which moving one end of the runway or sliding it or extending it is considered that in the FAA's eyes, we need to bring this trapezoid, which is in this area here, to the existing runway, into compliance. So it's not just extending.
Unless you would get a waiver?
They won't. The guidance that has changed since your last master plan, the guidance that came out in 2012, which the FAA released, they won't.
How do you know this?
It's there.
No, how do you know that they wouldn't look at this situation and say, wait a second, they can make some modification that allows us to extend the runway, maybe not take these homes, maybe not have, I don't know what all, and not have to deviate a road that's been there for I don't know how many decades with all sorts of loop-de-loops around it. I mean, I prefer the tunnel thing myself because I don't like this whole loop-de-loop, but okay. So we've actually know that we could not get some accommodation from them?
I'll never say never,
No, I'm asking you how you know we couldn't.
because that is antithetical to all the guidance. and-
No, I'm asking you how you know. I mean, have you actually spoken to the FAA? Have our engineers actually spoken to them?
We speak to them a lot about it.
Okay, but on this topic?
On this exactly one, yeah, I mean, not.
Well,
not-
when did you do this and what did they tell you?
Well, I mean, they would say they would not be willing to participate
Oh, I'm saying,
Fine.
so when was that
over
conversation?
the last 2 years through this process.
And you actually spoke to a human being at the FAA and told them about this issue?
Yes. I mean,
And they said they would not accommodate because of this, and they understood that we got a roadway and they were gonna have to do all sorts of shenanigans with that. And you discussed this issue because you were promoting going to the north with them?
Well, we worked through them with this process. and
No, were you
evaluated-
promoting going to the north with them? In other words, were you saying, look, we'd really rather go to the north?
Well, no, actually, honestly, we did not,
See, that's what I suspect, is that you didn't actually vet this issue with them. It's okay with me if you didn't, but I just wanna know whether you did or you didn't.
We vetted that through the process of the master plan and understanding, and, you know, as consultants for the airport, we've been brought on, understanding how the FAA's guidance works and what their.
Okay, you're confusing me. I don't what I think I'm hearing you say is that you really didn't vet a plan to go to the north. But you have the feeling that if you did really approach this, you couldn't accommodate it. Or maybe it is that you're feeling that we would have to take some homes or do some other things, which I'm not sure is the case. But because I get the feeling that perhaps the only thing you've really looked at is going to the south.
No, that I can certainly say is not true. We did look at going north.
Okay.
And through the process of the master plan and evaluating, the concept that was determined to be most feasible from a financial standpoint, from a political standpoint, from also a meeting the FAA's guidance and safety standards standpoint, was going to the south.
Okay, I mean, I don't wanna take homes to the north. I don't wanna take a property by eminent domain if it requires taking somebody's house. I don't like that. But I also think that we as a board need to know what it would look like going to the north. We need to really know what would happen and that we couldn't do it or what it would really look like.
And I will say, through, in the master plan documentation, that all exists, and we can certainly provide that to you.
Okay, thank you.
And that is all very well documented through it's a 300-page report.
All right, okay, I mean, because I have to tell you, it's kind of like a thought to me to do this whole Green Tree Road shifting and the roundabouts and the big curly, U-turns. It's not a U-turn, but I mean, you gotta go off to the left and then you gotta go to the right and then you gotta go to the right and then you gotta go back to the left and it's a big deviation. People are not gonna be happy about this. I certainly wouldn't be if I traveled Green Tree a lot. And I agree that, maybe it has a calming effect, I don't know. But I certainly would like to know that we've really looked carefully at going to the north and what that really means.
I would like to add to what Nick's saying is we did consider going to the north. And we, the board, made a judgment that you, the commissioners, would not want to participate in purchasing about 20 properties to the north to get that distance, that distance we need for safety. Given that I think there were 15 or 20 properties when we did look at that. That would mean purchasing properties with homes, with people on it, relocating people.
Yeah, I'd like to see that, because that just doesn't make it, with the property that we had purchased in the past, with that whole glide slope, and I know we have an easement, but as I remember it, there's several large farms that are there, and for 500 feet, how we would have to purchase 20 properties.
Dave, the reason is you need, in addition to 500 feet, by going to 5,000, you now need, instead of a 300-foot safety area, you need 1,000-foot safety area. So roughly to go 500 feet, you need 2,000.
See, this is where I really would like to know that we vetted this with the people who control this, if it's the Federal Aviation administration or whatever, whoever it is, and I get the feeling that there are reasons why you don't wanna do this, that are independent of that, which are probably completely legitimate. But the thing that I don't, because I get the feeling that the FAA might be very willing to waive certain things or work with us on things, and that your engineer has told you, well, maybe they won't or maybe they will, but have we really vetted this with the FAA?
I guess I would just say, to your assessment, as far as I'm concerned, I would much prefer to relocate a road than have to purchase 20 homes and relocate 20 families in this
And-
community.
And
So,
that's the, Shannon, that is the judgment we made through looking at the 70-some options we
But
had.
my only point is, you need to, yeah, ultimately, it's not your decision, it's our decisions.
Correct.
You have to provide us with that information, even if that's what you ultimately think is going to be our decision, which I'm sure it would be. We're not eminent domaining a bunch of people.
Right.
We're not. But again, my understanding of being involved for a while was these large farms. Simply show us the area that you believe is going to be that impacted and to where it's prohibitive. We can't go to the north for this reason. All you're saying to me is, we looked at this, we need to go to the south. Well, that doesn't help me from the standpoint of literally a major artery of traffic in this county. Let's put in 2 different roundabouts and slow the traffic down, even though some of the residents are gonna love it because, yeah, it slows it down. A lot of people, the thousands of people that travel it every day, are gonna hate that. So we need, and again, we just need to know, as opposed to, you all have looked at it and this is what we're gonna do.
And by the way, I don't disagree with anything Shannon just said. If that's really the choice. I don't want that choice. I don't wanna I hate eminent domain, hate it. And in fact, I would never do it.
I just need to see it.
You're right, but I need to understand it and understand, well, we got an airport operating right now. And within their rules, and I guess we're grandfathered into certain things, but I don't know what all, because I don't understand any of this. You guys are the people we rely on, not me. But it seems to me, in my dealings with the federal government, they try to find ways to make things work. And they're not necessarily completely wedded to certain rules, particularly when you're talking about being grandfathered into something that if they were to build this again, they wouldn't let us do this for the new rules. But knowing what our needs are and knowing how this thing lays out, I'd like to know that we really have vetted with them so that you could tell us, not guess, not we think, not we're kind of wondering, that we really know what would happen here, what the possibilities are, that's
Say
all.
We owe you certainly a diagram of what we would need to do to the north.
Yeah, and that we would have to do it that way, and we couldn't get some waivers or the FAA to work with us, because, one, I don't want to hurt or take homes to the north, you're right.
Yeah.
And you don't have to guess about that, that's true, but really, we need to know for certain that that would be the case. And then we need to know what the other possibilities, because I'm not convinced, based upon what you've told me today, that we've really vetted this with the FAA, a real going to the north. Maybe you have, and I hear you kind of talk to an engineer, and that the engineer kind of said, well, this is what the new rules are, and this is what this would mean, but maybe that wouldn't be required. That's all. I think that's what you're hearing us say, is that perhaps it's not. But at the same time, we'd really like to see that real data.
It's a fair request.
Yeah, and I'm
We're on
not
to
upset
that.
with you guys, okay? I agree with Shannon's point, and I agree with your surmise about where we would come out.
I just need to know that right now, we get a room full of people, why did you change, okay, some people are not gonna like 500 extra feet, and then why are you changing my primary road? And why didn't you do this instead of changing the road? Well, they said we couldn't do this. I just need to understand why we made the decision to go to the south and not the north. And right now, it's just, we looked at it and we think it's best. Okay, I need to know that.
And remind me again, by extending this runway, what kind of traffic can we now bring in that we can't bring in today?
It'll be more of the business jet type traffic, your medium-sized business jet, your smaller business jets.
We have jets coming in there now?
You get some of them today, but there's a lot of operators and a lot of insurance companies and that have a, be it arbitrary or not, they have a requirement for 5,000 feet or 100 feet wide.
Is this required by the FAA or is this for an insurance company that insures a plane?
More of the insurance company driving it.
Okay, so it's not really what's required by the FAA to fly a plane like that in. It's somebody, some particular private company or, some commercial venture that says, we don't want our multi-million-dollar plane coming into this airport.
It's kind of industry standard.
It's a
They want a
significant
certain
portion.
width of the runway, and we went from what to what a few years ago?
You're currently 75 feet wide.
From 55?
65.
So we did all that for literally, and that's where I tried to almost stop that, we did all that construction for literally 10 feet of extra. But in reality, it needs to be 100 wide, correct? Just even at 4,500 feet, 100 is better than 75. And that's where I was thinking, at the time of doing it, but I know that meant we would have given up the okay to go ahead and do it if we went back and tried to ask for more back when we did do that. But yeah, this is a big deal. I mean, obviously, when you're talking about, expanding a runway, this is something that's been discussed for more than 20 years. And now we're trying to get to the nitty-gritty of what is the plan. And I think what you're hearing the majority of the board say clearly is we just need to understand why you're saying this, as opposed to, because it is a big deal it's great for folks in the airport world, but now one of the major traffic arteries in the county, we're talking about putting in a couple of big roundabouts. Why? Why did we choose to do that versus this other way? Well, because we wanted an extra 500 feet and it's gonna help economic development, it's gonna help this, and then we're gonna bring in, there's gonna be more businesses, and all those justifications, which we all understand, but we just need to understand, okay, if we're gonna do it, why are we doing it here and then moving a major road versus over here, and wait, there's 20 homes that are gonna be impacted by this? We just need to see it.
Properties, yeah. Dave, I'm gonna say, we owe that to you.
Absolutely.
We will come back.
We have that. We have that.
We have the information. We'll set up to.
All right, yeah, we'll come back to that subject. Go ahead with your presentation. Don't want to belabor this on assuming the plan, whichever iteration we do, just go ahead and you can continue.
Yeah, and if you go north to south, a lot of the extremity facilities, the hangars, the aprons, those don't move. Those kind of stay the same. So, but I will say we've certainly applied a lot of the guidance that we as in the profession get from our federal regulators, and try to advise as best we can to our clients.
And I'm sure from an engineering standpoint, you're 100% right. This has been the guidance. They don't like doing this. They don't want to do this. Boom, boom, boom. But have they done stuff for us in the past? Absolutely, they have. And they've made waivers. They've done this type of thing in the past. So that's all.
Absolutely, and we have that analysis.
Whether you have that institutional knowledge or not, we do, and they have made exceptions in the past for us, but we're not saying that's a for sure thing, but it's just one of the data points of trying to make this decision.
Understand, absolutely, no problem. And like I said, we have that, we can certainly provide that. The other aspects of the plan here, we've got a new apron expansion on the parcel of land that's currently under purchase, the process there on the west side. That allows us to then build that parallel taxiway on the west side. But you've got a significantly larger, we're almost doubling, or more than doubling the size of apron available for aircraft operating in and out of the airfield. So we're checking that next box that's then going to allow that traffic to grow. And then we have some additional space for some of those larger, what we call box hangars, that accommodate the corporate type jets or multiple aircraft each in each one of those buildings with their associated aprons and taxi lane. And then an entrance road there to that area of the airfield as well. breaking it up into phases, as part of the master plan, we break what we call the capital improvement plan. It's the whole 20-year plan. We break that up into phases: short term, mid-term, and long term. The short term is a kind of a 0 to 5 year plan. So the master plan envisions developing that area there within the next 5 years. And those are broken out as different projects. They could be combined in actual implementation depending on how funding arises and the needs.
I thought there were plans to do a new corporate hangar, like right now, that's about to go in. Where's that going?
It's this building right here. That's the one, Josh, you guys are getting ready to build.
Okay, so the 5-year plan does not involve this going to the south.
Not yet, no. We did not envision that happening in the 5 years. Could it happen sooner or later? Yes. I mean, that's all dependent on funding
Well,
decisions.
we understand.
The midterm, the 5 to 10 years, is building out that parallel taxiway, providing that taxiway access to the full length of the existing runway. And then the long term is where we would envision that runway extension occurring and then the relocation of Green Tree Road.
And the long term is what is your
10 to
estimate?
20.
And that is an extension and a widening?
Yes, sir. They could be broken up and the widening done sooner. That's absolutely something that could happen through the implementation process.
How much money is it gonna cost to do all this?
So, there's a lot of ifs I have in there, but total, right now, the estimated total through that picture there is approximately $86.5 million.
And how is that gonna be funded?
Up to 27.5, we believe would be federally eligible. Now, is it guaranteed that they will provide that? No, a lot of that would be competitive grant funding, so you'd have to apply and compete for those dollars. But eligibility wise, we believe about 27.5 of that. Approximately 50 million would be third party, so a lot of those hangars you see, the assumed financial arrangement would be that those would be the airport would lease the ground, and then a third party or a developer or an operator would build their facility, obviously to standards that the airport sets.
That's a private cost. So you're saying, I'm concerned with the infrastructure. What's the cost of the infrastructure at the airport with the runways and the taxiways? And then the separate question is obviously the road, the building of hangars and all that's.
We're saying that's third party or
So
something.
what's the 50 million you just said?
That's the 50 million, the third party cost.
Okay, so that's of the 87. So you're saying it's 36 million.
That would be, publicly funded
Publicly funded by our taxpayers?
by a combination of either federal grants, what we believe that is about 27.5 would be federally eligible.
Which means they pay 95% of it.
Correct. So we're seeing about 8.3 is what the
And
estimates
what
are
is the,
from a local
and
funding
and
standpoint.
if we did that,
Mhm.
what is the advantage to the public taxpayer? Are they gonna get some return on this investment?
Yes, I mean, the greater economic activity through the airport, you'll have greater activity coming through, you'll have greater access to the county, both for the residents of the county as well as business
Well,
opportunities
how
and
does that
investment coming in.
translate into a tax revenue?
Well, you've got, again, greater payroll tax, fuel tax, investment in the county, the more access you have to Warren County, the more investment, the easier it is for folks to invest in companies to invest in Warren County and other facilities. So there's direct and indirect.
Okay, you've not done any studies on that.
Leases, hangar leases to the county, land leases to the county.
One of the things that has given the FAA allergy and a lot of heartburn is the fact that everything to the west, to the bottom of that diagram, is owned by a private entity. This gray area that he's talking about here, this gets the FAA off our back to a certain extent. This is area that you are going to receive rent for these people that are going to put buildings up, and they're going to pay us monthly rent for these buildings. This also prevents that whole through the fence thing that we've got going on. So in essence, what we have in green, this is now not only, it's becomes Warren County property. And now this is income. This is generates fuel tax, et cetera.
Fuel tax,
Yes.
it's a sales tax,
Yeah, on the aviation fuel sold.
and that, we share in part of that. That is, I know we get revenue share on sales tax, so we would get some sharing of that amount.
Oh, yes, I can't speak to
And
what
right,
the.
and right now, we don't do that?
I didn't hear the question.
Right now, we don't get that?
Can we get the fuel tax if we get it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we do, so all you're
It's
doing
just
is,
increase.
all you're saying is there would be more of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of the sales of that type of stuff. Number two is we would own, or we're about to own property there that there's going to be buildings on, and we get a direct payment on that. And then number three is the spillover of, is there more economic activity, which is a Martin and Matt question of, you know, our company's really saying, wait, I would expand here, wait, I need access to this, you know, we don't like driving, you know, if we had something 10 minutes away versus 45 minutes away at Lunkin, you know, we would potentially expand, we would do things like that. So is there just more economic activity? And when companies obviously invest and expand facilities or what have you, that means more property taxes, more jobs, more everything. But yeah, there would have to be, you know, clearly a synopsis of what that looks like. But then the other thing is, yeah, it's, so you're saying potentially out of pocket to Warren County would only be $8, $9, $10 million bucks?
If you were successful in getting all the federal funding, you would be eligible for about $8.5 million, yes.
Yeah, and just for perspective, the way, just for the record, the way that this has been set up with this FBO through the fence type of operation, no matter how much the FAA has not liked this arrangement, this has greatly benefited the taxpayers of Warren County, because I know for a fact Butler County has spent tens of millions of dollars. Correct, Doug? And they talk about, their county commissioners talk about that, because they have to have an airport, and the cost to Butler County residents is substantial because the county does everything themselves, correct? That is,
Yes.
Doug, that is a fact, correct?
That is a very fact, yes.
And as someone who works at airports all over the country, and all over the world for that matter, I will say, as much as the FAA does not like the fact that you have a through the fence, the fact that you have a through the fence, your airport functions at a much higher level and at a much more forward-thinking level than a lot of airports do. So you're in a fantastic position from a facility standpoint. Your facilities are newer, they're nicer, because of that. But by purchasing that parcel there and then doing a land lease, you're not eliminating the through the fence, but you're eliminating what the FAA perceives as that monopoly.
Well, it's the monopoly aspect of it, that if there's a problem with the operator, then all of a sudden we don't have any other options, versus there are options. And that's one of the primary reasons when we talked about, and Bruce and I talked about this at length, when we bought the land to the east, was if there is a problem, now we can go and set up a county-owned hangar and fuel operation. If we had a problem with the private industry or the private sector that was running the other side. So it gave us an option, which I know the FAA liked. Even if we didn't do it, we could do it. It was not a monopoly, and if we want to run aircraft in and out of there, you have to use this one provider. No, we don't.
Correct.
Let me add this. From the FAA's optics, what this looks like today is federal funds, state funds are being spent for a runway that only one entity can take advantage of. By adding that set of apron spaces in those areas, now there is an alternative. Now it doesn't look like there's a monopoly by one operator who's getting the benefit of all of that. That makes sense? This is the reason why that through the fence and getting that land was so important. And that will make it a whole lot more easy to get grants and money from the FAA and the state if that goes away.
Yeah, because of that, they'll now be willing to, they're likely willing to participate in funding that parallel taxiway on the west side now because of eliminating that monopoly, that perceived monopoly.
Right, well, and legitimately, for 20 years, we have been trying to put ourselves in a position where we're not at the whim of a monopoly. And that 100% has been some of the reasons why we've purchased at taxpayer expense some of the surrounding property. That we've known for a long time that we're land banking land right around here because we don't know what 20 years from now is gonna look like. There
That's
might
correct.
be a terminal over there. There might be something else
Yes.
there. We don't know what the demands of the free market are gonna be, but we knew for a fact we had to have, if needed, an alternative to a single provider.
And in addition to that, needing that alternative, and hopefully that you never need, but, you know, in addition to that, I mean, at some point, given the continued growth of the airport, you may run out of opportunity to develop on the west side. You have, you know, a bank of land to develop on the east side, obviously long-term, but I mean, this is, you know, what we're showing as your ultimate plan, and that utilizes that land to the east, as your, you know, your land bank, you know, if you need it, or once the development on the west side has basically been capped, or, you know, you've developed fully the available area on the west.
Okay.
Any other questions? That,
So essentially, the ballpark is, your best guesstimate is 35-ish, $40 million to do all of this infrastructure, and 90 or 95% replacement, it could cost taxpayers $8 to $10 million.
Best case
something-
scenario, yes.
Something like that.
yes, sir.
Warren County's portion of that bill would be that, 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, again, if you're successful in getting out as much as you can, absolutely.
Okay.
Tom, let me add something else about the relocation of the road. Yes, I'm a neighbor, yes, we have accidents on that road, but the initial concept that we took to Neil Tennyson was to, instead of doing that, was to actually take Green Tree underground and put a tunnel through there.
I know, he was here, we talked about that.
Okay, so you know that
Oh, I'm
that
very
was an
familiar,
option.
because you guys had another presentation where Neil was present, and we went throughout that whole thing. And he explained the logistical expense and the problems of going under, yeah, I'm very familiar.
Okay, just, I didn't remember that.
No, yeah,
So we owe you numbers and options and what the impact is to go to the north. Is that a fair step?
yeah, I'd like to know I would like to know what the real impediments are of going to the north, and I'd like to know whether or not we've really vetted and what the possibilities of, you know, getting the FAA to waive certain of their requirements that would make it more feasible to do that, and maybe less impactful. I'd like to know that.
Very good.
You can certainly do it.
Thank you.
so
Thank you.
much.
Thank
And,
you.
and by the way, really appreciate your presentation. Don't take my questions as being negative at all. I just want to understand it.
Absolutely.
It's just, we, ultimately, it's our decision, and we have to agree and understand all the alternatives. Why did we do what we did? You know, it's because we're just, I know you guys have vetted it, we have to vet it,
Sure.
of why are we doing what we're doing?
Absolutely, no. And if need be, we could come back and spend an entire day talking about it too.
No, we're not gonna do that.
I didn't think you wanted to.
Half an hour?
Yeah, a good half hour's good.
So, thank you.
One of our favorite trustees, Mr. Sands, do you have any comments on this matter? Always want to recognize you when you grace us here.
Commissioners, thank you very much. First, the gentleman behind us, I think very highly of them. They're very thoughtful. They're good communicators, and I appreciate that. I apologize that I'm in jeans and a shirt today. I don't usually appear like that before you, and I certainly respect this board. I want you to know that. There are certain aspects of the plan I've discussed with let me say that I think that my fellow trustees deserve to hear the full plan that you just heard, which we have not. We've heard previews of the plan that Doug has presented to us. There are certain areas of the plan that I do not have concerns about. I think expanding the taxiway is smart. I think it provides additional safety. I think if they need additional hangar space, I think that that's good. I think that by lengthening the runway, it changes the nature of the airport. That it's no longer a local regional airport. Rather, we're bringing in significantly bigger aircraft And we've invested a lot of money, and we have a lot of private property owners that have invested a lot of money in that area. Not only do you have the possibility of eminent domain if you go to the north, but even if you go to the south, then I have hundreds of acres that Otterbein has their property plan. It would overfly Charleston Woods in Lebanon. It would overfly the new subdivision that they're putting in Parkside. And what it would do is take our high-end housing that we're taking a look at right now, and would make it, I mean, people just don't want to build high-end houses where large jets are going to be flying over. And so that's going to disrupt our tax base significantly. So, we have Wright-Patt Airport right up the road on 741.
Wright Brothers.
Wright Brothers, that's right. Sorry about that. Wright Brothers Airport. We have Butler County Airport. We do have Lunkin Airport. Speaking for, I'm also chairman of Warren County Convention and Visitors Bureau. We have good people who come in, who fly planes in right now, but CVB is not looking to expand the airport there. We're putting a big gorilla in the middle of a high-end residential space. Clear Creek Township has just built $1 million homes off the end of the runway, about 2,000 feet away. And so I am reticent to put a much more, a different character of airport in the middle of what we've been working on years to develop and disrupting our tax base and doing that. If Warren County needs a new airport, then it may be more reasonable for bigger traffic to find a location where we don't have the pressure going on right now to invest the monies that would otherwise go here, which may be an inappropriate use for that location, and place that airport where it can be better accommodated. So a lot of we are supporters of the airport in Turtle Creek Township. We abandoned a road just to the east so that they could expand in that area. We have never objected to the additional hangar space. I think a lot of what they're thinking about is a good idea, but I think that the lengthening of the runway benefits some operators at the airport, but doesn't benefit the township in general. So those are my general thoughts.
Very good. Yeah, and we certainly are cognizant of that this would be a change. However, we would have to know the data on exactly who can land at a 5,000-foot airway. And again, my understanding is you're not talking about a Comair jet coming in here. You're not talking about Ultimate Air Shuttle running out of here. These are business jets, and there are business jets that operate out of there today. It's just you would have more frequency.
Commissioner, I would like to know that too, and that's part of why I want to be fair to these truly fine gentlemen, and I mean that sincerely. I think highly of them, and I appreciate their clear communication with both you and us. I would want to know that too, because I wouldn't want to get in the way of something that makes sense, that's rational, and frankly, some of the business jets are quieter than some of the piston-operated aircraft. But if it expands to a point where it undermines our tax base, then I'm going to have significant objections.
100% agree with you. It would be that, again, my understanding is you're not talking about a true, terminal type of thing going on there where, there's 35 or 50 people jumping on a jet. No, these are all, even at 5,000 feet, these are 8 to 14 person jets are the biggest ones that are going to land there. And we just need to know that as a fact and be able to deliver that, okay, there are jets operating today. It's somewhat rare because it's going to be a private operator who's already got his insurance or he self-insures it or what have you, to where they do use it. And now it's just going to be an increase of that. And there are even turboprops and things like that there are pilots that'll look at the dimensions of the airfield and say, I'm not comfortable landing there or operating out of there. We want, if we as a community want more traffic there, then the widening of the runway helped, and now widening it again and adding an extra 500 feet, as long as it doesn't change because I agree with you, we don't want to be that, we don't want that to be a full Lunkin. We just, I don't.
No.
We just don't. But do we want more business opportunities, especially for our corporate community, would they utilize it more? Would Cintas utilize it more, what have you? Those are the type of things that we know would produce revenue and spillover events, or spillover operations for the benefit of the county, that it's.
If it does. So, and those are the things that I sincerely ask, and it's one of the most important things I think that I've ever presented to this board, that we vet this very heavily, because disrupting our tax base in Turtle Creek Township that we've spent years to develop in that area, it would not, in my mind, be worth it for the
100% agree with you.
convenience of a few business travelers.
Well, and I would just say, I completely appreciate where you're coming from. I live right across the street in the flight path of the Wright Brothers Airport, and I can tell you that it makes big difference to have more jets there from 5:30 in the morning till 8:30 in the morning. It is nonstop, and from about 4 to 7 or 8, depending on daylight savings, it is nonstop and it's loud. I mean, I'm okay with it in that I live along a highly populated state route. There's an expectation that that's the case. I have a fire station being built right down for me. There is a lot of retail there, dense housing. So I'm not personally bothered by it, but it is very different now that there's more aircraft landing and taking off there. That's just the reality. And so I appreciate what you're saying, that it's, and you know, whether or not, and I respect wanting to have greater insight to the choice going north or south. I think that's a completely fair request, but in the back of my mind sits, is this something we really want to do? What is the juice worth the squeeze? Because it in the 6 years I've lived there, as that air traffic has increased, it is increasing the noise. Just the volume is increasing the noise in those periods of time. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I think it's fair to say we ought to know if the juice is worth the squeeze to the entire county in order to make that a reality.
And corollary to that is, thank you. Corollary to that is, you know, I have property owners with 360 acres. I have property owners with 200 acres that I know that they've been sitting on that property so that they could eventually sell that property. And if that property today is worth $12 million, and we put it in an airport, and that property is then worth $6 million, then I've benefited one party to the detriment of the other. So aside from my interest as a Turtle Creek Township trustee of preserving my tax base, you know, I don't want to say, yes, we'll do this, you know, at the cost of you property owners in order to benefit another group that, Turtle Creek's perspective, doesn't even live in Turtle Creek necessarily. So I respect you all. I know that you all undertake wise decision-making. I defer to that decision-making as well. But I do want to make it clear what Turtle Creek's concerns are on this. And again, the concerns are not on the additional safety, not on the additional hangars where they will accommodate. It's the delta in the nature of the airport that will happen as a result.
Fair enough, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Anyone else wish to speak on this matter? Very good. Gentlemen, know direction now that, yeah, we need some more information on making, you know, recommendation as to this is the master plan, we agree with the master plan, we don't agree with it, yeah, if we do expand it, it's gonna be this way. And again, these are long-term plans that could come into place. It certainly means nothing is set in stone. This would obviously be for future boards to consider when you are admitting it's a 10 to 20 year process even to get this going as it stands today. But very good. Martin, you got anything else?
I had those couple of add-ons that I put in the summary, if you've got a few seconds to talk about those. If you recall, back in, when we did the ARPA framework, there were some dollars that were set aside for the child care scholarship program to raise the level to about 200% of poverty for folks. The state actually has come in recently, and they have created their own program, which makes our program not needing to continue. That was serving a population, obviously, of families, but for children from 0 to 5. So working with Commissioner Jones, Susan, we went and looked for other kind of 0 to 5 programs where some of these dollars could be redirected. One of those is already in existence, and it's working with the mental health board, but was working with families specifically on mental and behavioral issues with those folks, kids that were in child care programs. So we're just wishing to seek guidance if we can reallocate some dollars to continue that for the next couple years. And the second one is the Imagination Library. That is also for young families. That group is working. It's actually a state program. Each county is doing some items. I think the governor and the governor's wife is pushing that significantly, is to work with families with newborns to have books that are to deliver to them on a monthly basis from 0 to 5 to help with increased literacy. We have some studies and stats from the ESC that kindergarten readiness has significantly decreased over the last several years, and this is an effort to work to mitigate that. So I know you're on the time crunch here a little bit, but wanted to see if we could just get guidance to kind of build up those contracts and get those ready to present to the board here in the next few weeks.
I would defer to Commissioner Jones on this matter. She's led the effort, and a reallocation of the funds that the board had already earmarked for this area, and then using it in if we don't have to use it there, then finding the best spot for it to be used. And between Commissioner Jones and Susan, who obviously knows this stuff better than I would support what you guys have decided.
Yeah, me too. Okay. If that's the case, we will bring that, and I'll let you know. We'll push it back on that, probably the one specifically for the mental health. I think the current initiative ends at the end of the month, so we'll try to probably get that in more quickly. And then, but I'll let you know in your summaries when that's coming forward, and we'll get that going. So appreciate that. And you said 10:15, and we got exactly 10:15.
Great.
Very good. Anything else?
I do want to real quick recognize we do have Nolan and Ian from Lebanon Schools that are here in the back. Nolan is the gentleman in Kentucky. Ian is the Joe Burrow.
Who day? Rough game Sunday night, but we pulled it out.
So, but I know we're on, but told them that you might ask some questions or anything of nature, but we do have those two gentlemen from the student government.
They've had to sit through a very boring work session. I don't know.
Well, I told them it was the airport, and it got a little exciting, so that was kind of
Well, hopefully you guys learned something today.
We got a band though, didn't we? There were a bunch of other students here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some that came in from RPC and others from building and zoning, so they're all across the different
All right,
departments.
if you guys answer this one question, we'll let you out of here within the next 2 minutes. What are the branches of government?
Executive, judicial, and legislative.
Boom, team effort, I like it. Which one are we?
Executive.
That's a good guess.
That's a good answer. Anything else? Good guess. Anything else?
Keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Boom. We happen to be the only positions that encompass all three aspects of government. We act in an executive capacity, we act in a legislative capacity, and then we also swear people in during certain zoning hearings and act as a judicial body. So we're a little unique that we have all three. So you are today's grand prize winners. With that, we will
Let you go.
entertain a vote to adjourn.
So moved.
And yes.